Hi, Dreamspace friends, it's Nikki. Welcome back to Dreamspace Dispatch, where we keep creating and writing even when the world feels like it's burning. I'm so glad you're here with me today for another cozy, real, slightly odd journey through this little patch of the universe. So grab your mug and your favorite blanket. It's still winter out there. January was endless, right? It seemed like it dragged on, and even though the calendar flipped, time just felt weird. The kind of month where just keep swimming is the only strategy that makes sense. But we made it. I made it, at least. Still here. Still mostly sane by my own delightful odd standards. Oh, and I turned 46 since we last talked. And you'll love this. I lost my annual bet with the water heater. It broke before February. So there I was, buying a new one, new copper pipes, and paying a plumber right before the big snowstorm. My kitchen, flooded. Terrible. Wet. Gross. And I used up every single towel I've ever owned in the last 15 years trying to make it through the night until the plumber could get there the next morning. So, after that, the dream space is still standing. My wallet is feeling a lot lighter. The world, meanwhile, is out there playing its spicy games, as it seems to always be doing these days. And now it's February. Punxsutawney Phil, our very unreliable little meteorologist, predicts 6 more weeks of winter. It's also in bulk. So I did my usual: salt in the corners, cinnamon by the door. I wish for abundance and fewer surprises. And yes, I've got 2 bottles of Prosecco stashed away for when it happens, because why not, right? That's a little snapshot from my side of the dream space. But what about you? What's up in your world? G yet? You know I have to ask. What's been keeping you afloat or just mildly amused this long, weird, cold season? I love that this podcast lets me check in with you and you with me, and with my stories and you with yours. Whether you're listening in your car, your kitchen, or curled up in bed, even if I don't get to hear your answer right away, I always want to know how you're really doing. Because a lot happens outside our personal bubbles. Heavy things, global things, the kind that make it hard to focus on much beyond just getting through the day. And lately, I've seen more people asking, especially on threads, what's the point of art or writing when the world feels like it's burning? That's been on my mind too. So today, we're exploring writing as resistance, art as memory, and why creativity still matters. Maybe more so. When the world feels overwhelming like it does now, this is especially for those of us who can't always do traditional activism, but we still want our voices to count. But first, let's get grounded together. With the Dreamspace Weather Report, consider it our cozy, no-pressure vibe check just before we dive into the heart of things. It has been a winter, hasn't it, friends? Not just on the calendar, but in spirit. Everything just feels heavy and slow, like boots trudging through deep snow. Like January went on forever. I don't know about you, but my energy has been, let's call it what it is, hibernation mode. And if you're feeling extra foggy or tired these days, you're not alone. My baseline is already perpetually tired, and I'm feeling it more so than ever before. The energy of the world is spicy, political, and grief-soaked. There's a lot to hold, and sometimes it just settles right in your bones. My body's been yelling at me lately. Pain flares, snaps that turn into accidental afternoon slumbers. So if you find yourself sleeping a little bit more or just needing a little bit more gentle time, welcome to the Biphasic Nap Club, babes. Membership includes a free permission slip to just rest. Here's the thing, though. There's nothing lazy or weak about slowing down, especially in times like this. Creative energy moves in seasons too. Right now, maybe you're pruning, not planting. Maybe you're letting ideas lie fallow so they can come back strong later. That's not failure, it's just good gardening. And in all of this, it's February and Black History Month, a time for reflection, for honoring resistance, for remembering that survival through words is not new, it's legacy. So if your creative weather feels overcast or foggy, you're in the right place. The dream space isn't about endless productivity. It's about honoring where we're really at and where we've been together. So today, We'll explore why art and writing aren't luxuries, even in chaos. Share practical things you can do. No homework, no guilt, don't worry. And we'll dig into ink and income, and we'll talk about how you can use your platform for mutual aid and memory and not just money. We'll highlight some voices and lessons from Black writers and others who have weathered storms before us. We'll talk about gentle, real ways to participate in the resistance, even if you can't march and be boots on the ground or shout. And we're going to close with letters from our friends, from Thimble, from Soul, and a cozy outro with books, quotes, and gentle encouragement. So wherever you're listening from, resting, creating, worrying, or just being, let's breathe together, check the creative weather, and head into the heart of the episode. So what is the heart, you may ask? Well, writing and art as resistance. A Threads post sparked this episode, and I'll paraphrase here. With everything going on in the US now, is art worth our time? Should we do something practical instead? And honestly, friends, I felt that question deep in my bones. When the world feels like it's on fire, sometimes literally, it's easy to wonder if creativity is just a luxury or even a little bit naive. That art is a luxury myth? Well, we're about to send it packing. So pause. Let that one breathe. Art is not a luxury. Art is memory. Art is defiance. Art is how we've always survived, especially those of us who have been pushed to the margins or told our stories didn't matter. Throughout history, when people weren't allowed to say the truth out loud, they painted it. They wrote it in poems, hid it in songs, carved it on walls, stitched it into quilts, zined it up and down the back alleys, and coded it into stories. Art was communication. It was warning. It was code, a cipher for those who knew how to read it. And right now, in 2026, it's still all of those things, especially for Black, Indigenous, disabled, queer, and other marginalized artists and writers. Acknowledging Black History Month is vital, as it offers an opportunity for reflection, learning, and amplifying the voices that have weathered the storms of oppression with resilience and courage. This month offers us the opportunity to honor art as both a form of resistance and a celebration of culture. From James Baldwin's fearless essays to Audre Lorde's searing poetry to Leroy F. Moore Jr., who founded Crip Hop Nation to amplify Black disabled artists, this is lineage, not trend. In her 1977 essay, Poetry is Not a Luxury, Audre Lorde wrote, "Poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence. Our words are essential. As vital as breathing or eating, they serve survival, coded information, emotional expression, and change, not merely as a pastime. This is especially true for marginalized people, Black, brown, queer, disabled, Asian, Jewish, Muslim, pagan, etc. These creators weren't just making art, they were preserving memory, warning the future, keeping hope alive. And they did it whether or not anyone gave them permission or validation. Even the quietest art, zines, blogs, poems, stories, letters you might never send, keeps the records alive. It props the door open for someone else to whisper, "Me too." That's how we make sure erasure doesn't win. And if you're thinking, but I'm not a real writer or artist, pause. Right there. Just the act of writing or painting or doing some form of artistry makes you an artist. You just have to be you. The act of making art itself is the stand. So if you can, write a letter. You don't even have to ever send it. Dictate it if it's easier. Jot it on the back of a receipt, a cocktail napkin. Type it into your phone. Just put it down. Put the truth out there of what you're living through right now. Get it out of your brain. That's how memory resists erasure. Resistance isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just stubbornly honest, quietly persistent, and a little bit scrappy. Every act of art, especially now, is a way of saying, the story doesn't end here. Okay, so let's talk business for a minute, the Dreamspace way. Ink and income is usually where we talk about freelance life, right? Creative entrepreneurship and the practical realities of being a writer in a world that expects a lot, but doesn't always want to pay. So today, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to chat about how Your writing and your business of writing, whatever shape it takes, can be a tool for sustainable resistance, even if you're nowhere near the front lines. First, however, let's name the tension. It's tough to struggle through paying bills and showing up for the world, especially when your own energy is limited by disability, chronic illness, neurodivergence, or just plain exhaustion. Sometimes resistance is just staying in the work, keeping the lights on and not burning out, and having hope. Sometimes it's using your business to lift up other voices and causes that matter, especially when those voices aren't your own. This matters even more during Black History Month, and too often Black voices get centered in February and then shuffled to the side for the rest of the year. That's not how we try to do things over here. Our job is to listen, learn, and keep listening, and to use whatever platform we have to lift up those who've already done the hard work of surviving, resisting, and teaching. So if you're a writer, editor, blogger, or any other kind of creative, your work can support resistance and solidarity in so many ways without breaking yourself in the process. Maybe that means sharing articles, stories, and resources by Black, Indigenous, disabled, or otherwise marginalized writers. You could curate a weekly or monthly roundup on your blog or in your newsletter. Make it a habit, not just a holiday. Or you might focus on accessibility, adding alt text to your images, using plain language, providing transcripts, and ensuring your content is easy to navigate. If you need help, ask for it. If you have resources to share, offer them up. Maybe you write about what's happening in your own community, documenting acts of resistance, kindness, or injustice. Sometimes just keeping a record is an act of resistance. If you have a knack for how-tos, consider writing a short practical guide. Maybe on setting up a blog, organizing mutual aid, or running an accessibility audit. Collaboration is another wonderful and very powerful tool. Invite writers from different backgrounds to guest post, co-create, or share their work. Listen more than you talk, and always credit generously. And don't forget, if your body or your energy is limited, you are allowed to ask for help or delegate. Collaboration is powerful. You don't have to do everything alone. And above all, your worth isn't measured by how much pain you can take for a cause. The work you do matters. The rest you take matters just as much. And hey, don't take my word for it. Shout out to LeVar Burton from another Reading Rainbow 80s kid. Seriously though, if you want to understand the power and lineage of writing as resistance, I'd love for you to hear directly from some Black disabled writers whose work has been essential, not just this month, but always. First up, Leroy F. Moore Jr. He's the founder of Crip Hop Nation, which amplifies the work of disabled musicians and artists, especially Black artists. He's the author of Black Disabled Art History 101, a book and project that unearths the legacy of Black disabled artists across time, ensuring these stories don't vanish into the margins. If you want to understand the intersection of Blackness, disability, and art, start with Leroy. Next is Kenny Fries, a memoirist and poet whose work explores the disabled body, queerness, and cross-cultural belonging. His book, In the Province of the Gods, is part travel memoir, part spiritual quest, and all about finding meaning and home when the world doesn't make space for you. Kenny's poetry and prose gently insist that disabled lives are worth narrating, complicated, beautiful, and necessary. Johnny Lacey is another writer and activist whose influence runs deep. She was a fierce disability rights advocate, one of the founders of the Center for Independent Living in Berkeley, and her essays and oral histories are some of the clearest, most unflinching looks at race, disability, and gender you'll ever read. She demanded that the stories of Black disabled women be centered, not sidelined. And then there's Lateef McLeod, a poet, scholar, and communication advocate. His book, A Declaration of a Body of Love, brings together poetry and reflection on living, loving, and fighting for justice in a disabled Black body. Lateef uses his work to create space for voices often erased from conversations about both disability and Blackness. If you learn from these writers, cite them, share their work, and support them directly if you are able. This is how we amplify without appropriating, and how we honor those people whose survival has always been an act of resistance. Ink and Income isn't just about getting paid. It's about using what you've built to help shape the world you want to live in. And that starts with knowing whose shoulders we're standing on and who still needs to be heard. So for this section, learning from those who've been here before, I want to do what feels most honest, and that's listen. I am not the authority here. I'm a student. And these are just some of the voices, books, and stories that have helped me learn and keep learning, especially as a white, disabled, queer person trying to do better. There are so many Black writers, disabled writers, queer writers, and others who have faced their own oppression with words sharper than swords. And here's just a taste, a rating list to get you started, or to return to if you need company and courage in your own creative resistance. Let's start with James Baldwin. If you've never read Baldwin, you are in for a revelation. His books, like The Fire Next Time and Notes of a Native Son, aren't just essays. They're lightning in a bottle, clear-eyed, deeply personal, and utterly unsparing. If you want to understand America, or even just understand the power of one person's voice against a whole system, start with Baldwin. Then there's Audre Lorde. Her words, whether it's Sister Outsider or The Black Unicorn, are more than just poetry and prose. They're tools, lanterns, and battle cries all at once. If you ever need to feel seen or need the courage to speak, Audre Lorde is the voice in the dark saying, keep going. Bell Hooks is another essential voice for me. Her books, all about love, anti-woman, and teaching to transgress, shows us what it means to find humanity at the crossroads of race, gender, class, and love. Reading Hooks feels like finding your compass in a world that's constantly spinning. Alice Walker's voice is both ancestral and immediate, timeless yet deeply present. In Search of Our Mother's Gardens and The Color Purple are foundational works, not just for Black womanhood, but for anyone who's ever felt the pull to create art from pain and beauty. Her essays remind us that creativity is survival. And then, of course, there's Maya Angelou. If you haven't read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, put it on your list. It is a required survival hymn, a story of resilience in the face of violence, racism, and silencing. Her poetry, pure music for the weary spirit. Angelou reminds us that even when the world tries to quiet us, our voices are still songs worth singing. Michelle Obama's Becoming. Whether you've read it, listened to the audiobook, or recently watched the Netflix special, it's honest, gentle, and quietly radical. It's an exploration of what it means to belong, to be resilient, and to find your own voice, even when the world is watching. Her story is both grounding and uplifting, a reminder that our journeys are worth documenting. And finally, for my white listeners who want to move beyond defensiveness and do the real work of allyship, I have to mention Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility. It is required reading if you're ready for honest conversations and real growth. Do not skip this one. Now, if you're more of a visual learner, or you just need something powerful to watch, let me share a handful of documentaries that'll shake you up, inspire you, and keep you thinking long after the credits roll. First up, 13th. On Netflix, Ava DuVernay's film is essential viewing. It digs deep into the realities of mass incarceration and race in America, connecting the dots between history, policy, and the world we live in now. It's the kind of documentary that will leave you both furious and galvanized. Next, a personal favorite, The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, is also on Netflix, and this one is for anyone who wants to understand queer and trans activism, not just as history, but as a living, breathing, ongoing fight. Marsha's story is heartbreaking and beautiful, and the film is a tribute to the power of chosen family and fearless resistance. And then there's Crip Camp. It's not just about a summer camp. It's about the disability rights movement and how a wild, radical community of campers and counselors helped spark a revolution. This documentary is joyful, rebellious, and a reminder that the fight for access and dignity is never over. These films are just starting points. They open the door to more stories, more questions, and a much deeper understanding of the world and the movements shaping it. If you have a favorite book, essay, poem, film, or podcast by a Black, disabled, or otherwise marginalized writer or artist, please share it. Leave it in the comments, tag me on socials, and all of that information will, as always, be in the description box below. So let's keep building each other's reading lists. And if you only take one thing from this, let it be what Michelle Obama said. Your story is what you have, what you will always have. It is something to own. And that's the heart of why art, writing, and listening to others' stories matter, especially now, for anyone who's ever been told to shrink, to hide, or to doubt their own narrative. When you own your story, you create space for others to do the same. When you learn from voices at the margins, you make your world bigger, kinder, and a little more true. Keep reading, keep listening, and keep telling your story in whatever way feels right to you. We've spent some time soaking up wisdom from the voices and stories that came before us, and I hope you found a spark of comfort or inspiration there. But wisdom isn't just tucked away in books or documentaries. It lives in our everyday lives, in the letters and conversations we share with each other. So let's bring it a little closer to home. It's time for Letters from Thimble, a space for gentleness, encouragement, and the quiet forms of resistance we practice together, even when we're apart.
Hello, dear friends. It's Thimble here, writing with a little heart in my paw for anyone listening and thinking, I want to help, but I can't be out there. What can I do if I'm not on the front lines? First, I want to say, your body, your capacity, your limitations, whatever they look like, are valid. The story that says real resistance only happens in the streets leaves out so many of us who are doing our best to survive and support from wherever we are. You don't have to apologize for needing to rest, for relying on others, or for doing things a different way. Here's what I want you to know. Participation is plural, not hierarchical. Maybe you can write, even if it's just a short note, a poem, or a blog post. Maybe you're good at archiving, saving articles, screenshots, news, or stories so they're not lost. Maybe you have the energy to create resource lists, accessible guides, lists of mutual aid funds, or info about disability rights in your area. Perhaps your strength is listening, offering gentle support online or in person, or just showing up in your community space, digital or otherwise. Sometimes, holding hope for someone else is resistance all on its own. If you have a bit of money, supporting mutual aid, bail funds, or accessibility projects is a huge contribution. But if you don't, you're not failing. Disability is expensive, and we don't ask anyone to break themselves for a cause. And if what you have is a story, an artwork, a zine, a meme, a thread, or a prayer, share it. Memory is resistance too. Most importantly, don't do it alone if you don't have to. If you need help writing, archiving, sharing, or participating, ask. If you have a caregiver, friend, or support system who wants to join in, let them. There's no special prize for doing it all by yourself. The powers that be would love for us to feel isolated, hopeless, and cut off from one another. They want us to believe our limits make us weak. But every act of reaching out, every comment, DM, blog post, group chat, or art exchange is a small refusal of their story. We're allowed to lean on each other. In fact, we're meant to. If you want to share resistance art, name a fear, send a hope into the world, or just tell me how you're doing, all that info is in the description. I always love hearing from you. You belong here. Your efforts, however small or quiet, matter. We're in this together. With love, Thimble.
After all these gentle reminders from Thimble that our participation counts, that resistance can be quiet, and that community is built one small act at a time, let's take a breath together. Because sometimes what we need most is a pause. Soul to soul is just that moment. a time to sit with everything we've gathered, to rest and to let the words and warmth settle in. So find your softest spot. Let's drift from the letter writing and encouragement into a quiet space for reflection and soul care.
I just want to take a moment, not to give you a pep talk or a to-do list, but to sit with you quietly in the realness of right now. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're scared, maybe you're angry, numb, or swinging between hope and dread with every headline. That's not a failure. That's just what it feels like to be awake and alive in the world we've landed in. History is full of people who shouted and marched, yes, but it also remembers the ones who kept writing when the shouting stopped, the ones who wrote the truth down, even if their hands were shaking, the ones who stitched the stories into quilts, tucked them into diaries, slipped them into letters, drew them in margins, coded them into songs. Art is proof that someone endured, someone witnessed, someone survived. If you don't feel brave, you're in good company. Courage isn't about being invincible. It's about making something gentle in the middle of all this noise and fear. It's about refusing to disappear, even in small ways. Every act of creative resistance, no matter how quiet, is a little flag that says, I was here, I saw, I cared, I tried. So here's my gentle invitation from me to you. What's one small act of creative resistance you can take this month? Maybe it's a blog post, a letter to yourself, a doodle in your journal, a playlist, a recipe, a zine, a thread, a collage, a poem, or just a conversation with a friend. It doesn't have to change the world. It just has to be yours. And it just has to be true. And if all you can do this month is rest, that counts too. Rest is resistance in a world that wants you running on empty. You're not alone in any of this. Your art, your words, your voice, your rest, they all matter. They ripple out, even if you never see where they land. Thank you for being here. Thank you for enduring. Thank you for caring in whatever way you can. From my soul to yours, keep going. Even if it's just one word, one day, one gentle act at a time.
Before we wrap up, let me leave you with this. Your art, your writing, your voice, your expression in any form isn't pointless. Even when the world feels like it's gone completely haywire, upside down, especially then. This is exactly when art is needed most. We have survived as humans by telling stories, making music, drawing on cave walls, scribbling in journals, weaving, singing, dancing, building, painting, and writing it all down. This is how we process, share, grieve, rage, hope, remember, and dream something better. Don't let anyone stop you. Don't buy the lie that art is a luxury, or that it's less important when things get hard. Art has always been at the heart of resistance, and it's always been the proof that we were here. If you want to dig deeper, reading lists, resources, the link to our website, contact information, and all of that stuff is in the description box below. And remember, we're here for each other. We will go farther together than we ever will apart. Keep your pen full, use it with care, and keep writing. One word, one day, one spark at a time. And I'll see you next month. Bye, y'all.